Hello and welcome to Oud Talks Pens. Today I want to thank Lian Likes and Simone for coming up with these great 8 fountain pen questions that I have seen many other people make videos of and answer. And through the playlist of 8 pen questions, I have found many people to follow who make great reviews or just other kinds of pen content that I really enjoy watching. So thank you for coming up with the questions and this fun challenge. And finally, I found the time to sit down and answer these questions for myself. I will give longer answers when talking, and I will probably write down some short answers just to have something to look at. This is a Clairefontaine Europa note maker. The original questions I wrote with a Pilot Vanishing Point with a broad nib and Scribble Purple from Diamine, and I will write the answers with my Pilot Custom 823 with a broad nib inked with Waterman Tender Purple. I really enjoyed demonstrators to see the ink inside. So let's get going. When and how did your fountain pen journey begin? I was very young, reading fantasy books, reading lots of other kinds of books, reading about people writing with fountain pens, and watching illustrations of, for example, people writing with feather quills or just quills, and finding it a really interesting aesthetic. I didn't think about the writing experience. I think in the beginning I just thought it looked cool. I have always been proud of being a little bit different, of not being like everyone else. That was something I felt I was interested in, something that not everyone was doing, and I wanted to try. Not to try and be as different as I could in that way, but just something that I thought was cool. And I didn't really care if other people thought of it in the same way. I don't have my first fountain pens because it took me a really long time to learn that you actually needed to clean fountain pens, which is embarrassing to admit today. This is a pen that is quite a few years old. As you can see, it's been used and abused for many years. This is a Lamy All-Star. It's not inked. It has a broad steel nib. My first fountain pens were all medium nibs because I thought that I did not like fine or extra fine nibs. I have larger handwriting and I thought that broader nibs suited my writing style better. I still kind of prefer, I still prefer broader nibs. I really do, but I have learned that variety is the spice of life, and I now have pens in any sort of nib width that you can think of. So this was one of my trusty workhorses, my only pen for quite some time. Then I remember getting a TWSBI Mini Diamond 580 or something. That one I did not take good care of and I had to throw away at some point. And then I graduated into different kinds of pens. I think my Lamy pens are a good illustration of what happened. I first got the All-Star, used that for quite some time, was really happy with it. Then I got the Lamy Emporium. This one has a 14 karat gold nib. This one is a fine, because at that point I had learned that fine nibs are really great for note-taking and many different ways of writing. This is a beautiful and elegant pen, one of the prettiest I own, I think. then I started watching pen reviews, and the Lamy 2000 had never really interested me. I thought it was boring. I didn't consider getting it. But then after watching quite a few reviews, I became interested because so many people were singing its praises. And I thought, well, I'm not really someone who likes to follow. But I mean, with that many people whom I trust their opinion, when they're recommending this pen, then it made me curious. So this is the first one I bought with a broad nib. And I also have one with an extra fine nib because I really like this model. And then of course I discovered that I liked larger pens. And since I have gotten many thicker pens because I find them more comfortable to hold, like this Cancer model from Zodiac Pen Company. I think I have learned about my taste in fountain pens along the way. I have learned which materials I like, which brands I like, the different writing experiences. In the beginning, I was more about the aesthetic. Now I still enjoy how beautiful fountain pens are, but it's more about the writing experience. Yeah, I think I was about 12 when I started becoming curious about them and doing a little bit of research, and then I bought a cheap but cool looking quill pen, beautiful looking with a black feather, and then I gradually started buying single fill fountain pens and so on whenever I could find them in stationery stores. And I was regularly using fountain pens from about the age of 14. In Norway, we don't learn to write with fountain pens at school. It's not encouraged, but it's fine if you want to. So it felt interesting to have, I didn't consider it a hobby, but a different way of writing and learning about the difference between writing with a pencil, a ballpoint, a fountain pen, a marker. Yeah. So, favorite inks in the beginning. What are your go-to inks now? So, the second question. This could be a really long answer, but in the beginning, I thought I was really cool and alternative for writing with black ink instead of blue, which I consider the norm. And then as time went on, I saw that black ink was really very common, and that's fine. I still prefer black ink to blue, but there are so many beautiful blue colors that I now write with blue ink as well. So my go-to ink in the beginning was Pilot's Namiki Black, which I bought in cartridges for my vanishing point, and also I believe I had a bottle of Diamine Onyx Black, and that was a lovely, those were both lovely black colors that seemed truly black in writing to me. I don't like black inks that are green or brown leaning, but after using black ink only for many years, I learned that you should clean your pens, and I also learned about different ink colors. So now one of my go-to colors is Diamine Oxford Blue. It's a very well-behaved ink. I like the color. It flows really well in all of the pens I've tried it in. It's become a staple because it's not the standard sort of watery blue. It's a bit darker, more interesting, I think, and still professional looking. Another staple is Sailor Manyo Yomogi, which looks much more boring on this camera than it does in real life. It's much more turquoise or teal colored when you see it in real life. And I use this color a lot, and other teals. I mean, these, I have two of these, which with my samples of my bottled inks, and you can clearly see I have a blue problem, particularly sheening inks. I love sheening inks. And teal and turquoise problem. This one also has the green ones. Well, the problem. I have lots of beautiful inks that I really love to use. I don't consider that a problem, but of course the inks do take up a little bit of space, and sooner or later that will become an issue. I do really like jewel toned inks. I like darker inks, and that really shows clearly in my ink collection. Here are some more go-to inks. Diamine Red Dragon, one of my very favorite reds. It's a beautiful true red, I think. Getting into shimmering inks took me a long time. I've always loved sheening inks as long as I knew that they existed, but shimmering inks felt like a risk. But this color combination was really beautiful, so I use that quite a lot. Also, loving jewel toned inks or inks with a clear sort of color. This ink, Diamine Master of Puppets, really surprised me that I loved it so much, because I see it as a little bit of a muddy sort of purpley red brown with lots of green sheen, but I just love it. I can't explain it. I really like it, and I use it a lot. Lamy Blackberry, a purple undertone with lots of gold sheen. Wearingeul Frankenstein, my favorite purple ink. I think the purple undertone with green brown sheen and bluish shimmer is really beautiful. Colorverse Hayabusa, a really punchy purple that I think shows up great on the page. Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo. I could have mentioned a lot of Pilot Iroshizuku inks, but this one is such a lovely color. I can understand why it constantly comes up when people are talking about their favorite inks, because the inks from these lines are from this line are so well behaved, and the colors are so strong. Wearing Your Pride and Prejudice Jane Austen is also an ink that surprised me. It is a bit dry. I do prefer wet inks, but this magenta color is just, it just lights up the room. I'm not usually someone who goes for pink, but this pink purple color I think is just gorgeous. I would actually like a dress in this color. My favorite gray, Ink Institute's Cat at Midnight. It's a darker gray with a red-brown sheen. I have never seen the sheen show up in writing, but it's a beautiful, cool, dark gray. And now, if I use black ink, I will usually use Platinum Carbon Black or the Pilot Iroshizuku Takesumi. So, my tastes have changed quite a bit when it comes to ink. And I now have a substantial ink collection as well. Well, for years and years I had a few pens and only a couple of inks. So, I have already answered this question a little bit. How have your ink and pen tastes changed over time? But yeah, that sums it up. I have gotten into different brands, different sizes of pens, nib widths, and for inks, I now use lots of colors. And I have discovered, as I said, I like wet inks, and I will now check if the ink is wet before buying a bottle. Are there inks and pens that you have yet to try but would like to? Yes, I have never tried an Aurora fountain pen, and if I find a larger model, I would love to try one. I have seen that their nibs run broad, and if I were able to get my hands on a double broad, I would probably be really happy, because I've heard that they are very smooth and comfortable to write with, and wet. Unfortunately, Aurora pens do look smallish for my taste, but I think there are some larger models out there. I would also love to try a Mont Blanc pen. I will, probably, this summer. Yeah, there are so many brands out there, so many different kinds of pens, so I think there will always be new brands and interesting pens out there that I would love to try. My Aura pens, I would also be interested in trying. And there are so many independent pen makers, like Heinz pens, Black Robin pens, and many others that I have been following them on social media for a while, and I am really tempted to buy a pen, but it has to be the right time when I have the budget for it, and also if I either get a pen made the way I want it to be, or if they have something in their web store that I really like. But there are so many great independent pen makers, and I feel almost obliged to support them, because I think it's great that people are still making fountain pens for the fountain pen community. yeah, originality is amazing. People making pens from different materials and different shapes, trying to figure out what is the right pen for me. Yeah, it's just a fantastic, fun journey. Question 5, what is your holy grail pen? Well, that depends on the definition of what is a holy grail. Some people define a holy grail as something that they really want. It doesn't have to be difficult to get, they just have to want it a lot. My definition of a holy grail is something that is impossible or almost impossible to get. Something that you would have to sort of, all the stars would have to align for you to be able to get it. For me, my holy grail is not an actual pen, not a real pen that has been made. I think it would be a pen with a body like the Cancer model that I showed earlier from Zodiac Pens, or a feel from Scribble. They have similar shapes. In a lovely varied purple material that varies between red purple and blue purple, dark and light, and possibly some transparency as well. And it would have an 18 karat gold double broad nib, possibly ground to an architect, a 12 millimeter grip section. I have no idea who makes that pen. But if it exists, I want it. But I don't think it actually does. But maybe someday. And I have also seen some limited editions, some pens that are really difficult to get now, but were available years ago when I wasn't really buying fountain pens, or they were way out of my budget. But yeah, I do have some Grail pens. How many pens do you currently own? That's question number 6. Oh, that's a question we all love, isn't it? I don't know exactly, but I do own around 100 pens. That is including everything from the Pinarder Psycho, that is worth about $2,000 to $3,000, to a Jinhao Shark, which is worth $2. And I have a lot more of the inexpensive pens than the expensive ones, but I have saved up sometimes and bought some really expensive pens that I have wanted for a long time. I don't really have an opinion on how many pens a person should have. I feel like, nor do I think that people are obliged to have a rotation and use their pens equally or for the same amount of time. But yeah, the answer is about 100. Question 7, do you have a limit on pens or inks in your collection? No. Why would I? I think the only thing that limits the number of pens I own is, of course, my budget and the storage space. And fountain pens don't really take up that much space. I mean, not that I would have the budget for that, but I could have been collecting boats or something like that. So no, there isn't really a limit on pens or inks, though I think at some point I would stop collecting inks. I am already trying to avoid colors that I already have, because I can see that I have more ink in some colors than I will probably ever use. So both when it comes to pens and inks that I see that I don't use as much as I feel they deserve, or I really don't have a use for them, then I will sell them. And that's something I've started to do quite recently, but it feels good to be able to give someone else, hopefully, a good price on a pen that they want, and it will be used instead of being sort of giving me a bad conscience. I mean, pens are not sentient beings. You can use them or not. But I do think it is better for them to be used, because I don't really buy my pens for collecting them. I buy them to use them. So the collecting is a byproduct. Definitely. I don't have a need to have pens in every color unless I know that I will use the different colors, for example. So not really a number, maybe a feeling when it comes to inks and storage space and how long can you actually keep ink before it goes bad. Quite a few years, but still. If I reach a limit, which doesn't really exist at the moment, I think it will be just a realization. I have enough. And consequently, what would you do if another pen or ink came along? I think if a pen or ink came along that I really want, I would, and I can afford it, I would probably buy it. And then if the reason why I have stopped buying pens is storage space, for example, I would sell one of the pens that I use the least or like the least, and that would solve the situation. Yeah. Thank you for listening to my ranting about fountain pens. I really have, as I said, enjoyed seeing all of the other people in the fountain pen community talk about their pens, the hobby, what it means to them, how they got started through these 8 pen questions. I hope it has been entertaining, and I hope to see you in my next pen video. Thank you. Bye.